Okay, now that it's a few of us in here, I guess I can kind of like start the live. So today I'm gonna be talking about the body keeps the legacy. So that saying, the body keeps the score, is also the body keeps the legacy. So we're taught, thank you. We're taught that lineage and legacy is extended and carried through men and, you know, our names. So when we get married, we take on our husband's last name. When we are born, we take on our father's last name. We give our kids their father's last name. And it's really a mindfuck, and it's really kind of creating more illusion, because then we tie legacy to men when women are the legacy carriers and extenders, because we inherit so much from our mothers that really we have to focus on the feminine energy that, our mitochondrial DNA says that we are the keepers of the legacy. So if we look at the body as the legacy, when I talk about coming home to our body and being more embodied, this is what I'm talking about. As a mother, you can't want more for your kids and also have a dysregulated nervous system. You can't want more for your kids and not be home in your body, because it's going to be a contradiction. So you can want them to go to college. You can want them to marry a better man that maybe you chose. Then you're going to have to really do some real work on your nervous system. And I've made a post before saying, like, if you are a single mom, take it as a gift, because if the father would have stayed, he would have only further dysregulated the child. But I'll also take that a step further and saying, if you are the primary parent, especially as a mother, your goal should and has to be regulating your nervous system and coming home to your body to give your child a surviving chance at a thriving life. Otherwise, you are passing down survival to them. And they'll go through that survival mentality and nervous system until they get, like I said the other day, till they get to their Saturn return, till they get into their 30s and they're starting to have to unpack a lot of stuff. Luckily, I think a lot of the younger generation is doing it earlier, that they're not waiting till their Saturn return to do their healing work. But I also think it's because millennials have started to do their healing work. So the earlier that we start the healing work, I think the earlier our children will. A surviving chance at thriving life. And I could see it was passed to me from plenty generations. I'm going to get to that. So when we think of legacy, we naturally think of men. But when you think of legacy and you think about wanting to pass down or your children inheriting anything from you, take money off the table, because even if you could pass them down all the money in the world, if they don't know how to regulate through having that type of wealth, they'll squander it, which is why you see people who are millionaires, who are wealthy, and then their children are fuck-ups. Because, you passed them down all this money, but you didn't pass them down a nervous system that would be able to sustain that type of wealth. And so my first little note was nervous system carries inherited survival patterns. So when we think of how we survive now, if you really want to know what survival patterns you're still living in, look at your mom. How does your mom handle money? What is your mom's relationship with her body? What was your mom's relationship with her mother? What is your mom's relationship with your father and her love patterns? If you want to know what patterns you were born with, you got to look at your mom. And then look at her mom and look at her mom before that. Because if you are going to really be the generational cycle breaker, those are the patterns you're going to have to look at. So when we talk about legacy, women are born with all the eggs they will ever carry. So before we're even thinking about carrying a child, before we're even coming earthside, you already existed. So when your mother was in your grandmother's womb, you were also present. And this is why the theory that men pass on legacy is really stupid. Because if legacy only was by name, then it wouldn't exist until we existed in this realm, this earth realm. And so when we are thinking about what legacy means, and for men especially, it has to be how are you holding space and nurturing the nervous system of your wife or baby mama, child's mother, whatever you want to call it. And so this is how, patriarchy doesn't even work for men. Because you so worried about legacy, but you're not taking care of the legacy. You're not even doing the things that would warrant your child a better, and like I said, thriving life. And then because men aren't really the carriers and extenders of legacy, they can't even wrap their minds around that yet. Hey, Osha. Yeah, men have to be the ones to protect the feminine circle, but I also don't think men are protectors in that way. Men are protectors by stewarding themselves, because a lot of the harm that women experience is because of the lack of masculine discipline. So take that thought of, men have to protect women. We need men to be the providers and the protectors. No, we need men to protect and provide for themselves, so women don't have to abandon themselves to try to do that for men. And this is how our roles have just been enmeshed in such a toxic way that nobody has respect for each other's roles, because with self-abandonment, you still want somebody to be responsible for it. You're not abandoning yourself and say, this don't matter no more, I don't care about it. No, you still care about it. You still have that desire for protection and love and all the things. You just want someone else to do it because the responsibility is too heavy. The responsibility is too hard. And tying this back to women and our bodies being legacy, women have a great deal of responsibility that we have abandoned because of the weight of it. We have abandoned because we want men to do it. And this is how, when we talk about patriarchy, men aren't going to give up patriarchy. Women are going to have to take back their responsibility. And the responsibility is going to have to be being responsible for your womb. Because your womb is what is carrying the legacy. When we talk about legacy being the body, it is, yes, our whole full body, but the womb is what carries it. The womb is what carries our energetic imprint that will birth down the next generation, whether we have kids or not. Hey, Megan. Which brings me to my next point. The womb stores emotional memory, grief, and wisdom, and women are transmitters. We alchemize. So going back to the point of women being born with all the eggs that they are ever going to carry, and your mom carried you when she was in your grandmother's womb. When I'll answer questions at the end. But going back to that, of women having emotional memory, meaning whatever your grandmother was going through during that pregnancy, whatever grief, whatever hardship, whatever patterns she was, can I say what again? Whatever experiences she was having, you also have that emotional memory within your body. Because we are 70% water. What we know about water is intelligent. Water holds memory. So if we all came from the same water bank, we all carry the same energetic resonance, then women have to start taking responsibility for how they program their water. What stories get to be kept in their womb, because the womb is where we hold our water. That's where we carry our emotions. And on a more spiritual aspect, that is how we access the Akasha. The Akasha is the collective memory. A lot of people will say Akashic Records. There's the Akashic Records, then there's the collective womb, the Akasha. Those are two separate things. This is why when you hear people talk about the Akashic Records and they say they visually see a library, because they're talking about the subconscious mind. When I say the Akasha, I'm talking about the subconscious womb that all women are connected to. And because of that, because women all are connected to the Akasha, we are all linked to karma in that way, because we hold the energetic memory. And a lot of people feel like karma is bad. Karma is just cause and effect. That's it. So you have good karma, you can have bad karma. I don't really like to look at it as good or bad. It's just that the experience you're having is the experience you need. Because whatever happened prior to, that was just the product of it. But because of the energetic memory that we carry and hold, we hold that karma. And that's a part of the responsibility, that not only will we hold the karma, because we're not supposed to hold the karma. We're supposed to transmute the karma, which is why we have menstrual cycles, which is why we shed every 28 days. So if you are shedding every 28 days, you should be releasing the karmic memory stored in your womb. But what happens is we're not aware of what we're holding. We're not aware of the karma of our lineage. We're not aware of our patterns to where we can intentionally release. And if we're not aware, we'll continue to repeat it. And the awareness comes from being deeply connected to your womb. Sorry, I had to block him because this ain't even for men. I appreciated his comments and stuff, but this ain't for men. Anywho, what's the Akasha again? The Akasha is the collective memory within our womb. So I talked about the difference between yeah, in here taking up space, in here just commenting. Cool, great. Glad it's resonating with you. I don't know why it's resonating with you, but cool, but this ain't for you. But the Akashic Records, there's a difference. The Akashic Records is the subconscious mind. The Akasha is the subconscious womb that connects all women. And so because all women are also the protectors and carriers and transmitters of karma, we have access to the Akasha. So think of the Akashic Records of, sure, a history book. The book of, I don't think of it as the book of life, even though a lot of people talk about the Akashic Records being the book of life. I personally think the Akasha is the book of life, because this is the womb and the space of which all life flows through. So there's difference, and you'll usually hear men talk about the Akashic Records from a place of library, because they're talking about the mind. For women, in my experience, have access to the memory of water, which is two totally different things. The mind is the air element. The womb is the water element. We already know the intelligence of water already. And so with women, we naturally already have access to the Akasha. And so the workshop that I will be doing on the 6th is to usher women into how to access that within their womb, as in like connecting to your body, connecting to your womb, connecting to the Akasha. Because in order to connect to the Akasha, you also have to connect to your maternal line. A lot of the reasons why we don't carry the responsibility of our karma is because we're also disconnected from our womb. We're disconnected from our womb. We're disconnected from our maternal line. And a lot of what is happening, at least I believe, when it comes to a lot of adult children and the changes that are happening amongst families, is because the people who are really doing the generational curse breaking things are because they are connecting back to their body. The patterns and the cycles and the toxic ways has been out of disconnection. And so the cycle breakers aren't chosen, they're capable. And I always like to reframe that, because when you hear a lot of people, especially within religious communities, Christianity, you'll hear a lot of people say, I'm chosen, I'm chosen, I'm chosen, I'm chosen. In my opinion, no, you're capable. And you will only be capable if you choose to be home with your body. It just means you're capable of feeling your feelings. You're capable of processing emotions. And the reason why it's so difficult on the capable one is because you're not just processing your emotions, again, because you're holding all of this in your womb, and you're also now connecting yourself back to the Akasha. So now you also are processing the emotions and the karma of all the women who chose not to do that work. It's almost like karma, the emotional memory, the emotional wounds are on pause until somebody picks it up. And so patriarchy will exist as long as women do not want to be capable. As long as women don't want to clear and transmute karma. Which naturally, like I said, we do it anyway. We do it every 28 days with our menstrual cycle. But because we're so unaware of our patterns, we're so unaware of what it is that we are carrying, we'll repeat it over and over again. To where 1 month I might be processing shame. Okay, cool. Next month I might be processing grief. Cool. Then I get to go on and I keep getting to process every 28 days, something else. But if I'm not aware, if I don't allow myself to feel what comes up, if I don't allow myself to address what comes up, then I'm processing shame every month. Because I'm just avoiding it. And this is where we get to avoid it by taking birth control that don't even allow us to have a period no more. We get to avoid it by taking Tylenol, things that soothe cramping. Because pain actually brings us into our body. You're more aware of your body when you feel pain. This is why I always say birth is initiation. A lot of women have children because you are being initiated to come back to your body. So when we choose to give birth and you choose to get an epidural, you choose to, I won't say choose to get a C-section, because more than likely you didn't choose to get a C-section originally. It kind of just, your cervix wouldn't open, which also leads to, when your cervix opens, because we hold emotion in our hips, we hold emotions in our cervix. If you cannot process your emotions, your cervix will not open. I don't know if I've ever said this, but I'm also a doula. So if you cannot process your emotions, labor and delivery is going to be very difficult. Because outside of the pain, the pain will be worse the more you cannot process and regulate through difficult emotions. But also, you will not be able to probably give birth in the ways that you want to. So, in me being a doula, that's my mode of teaching. It's not about, sure, breath work, cool. Meditation, breath work, because I teach hypnobirthing. Yes, all of those things matter. It matters for the mind. It does not matter for the body. So the best thing you could do while preparing to give birth during pregnancy is start doing your work of what emotion is difficult for me to sit with and process. How can someone who has never given birth process? Connect back to your womb. Connect back to your womb. Be really intentional and connected during your menstrual cycles. If you don't have menstrual cycles, for health reasons, I would just start with doing womb work. And if that is what you are going through, you should sign up for the workshop. Because in the workshop, I'll be doing a guided meditation to connect, one, to your body, then to your womb, and then to the Akasha. And this was what I was saying the other day. I think when it comes to women choosing not to have children, I think it's because you don't need children to come back into your body. That either you're choosing to do that work on your own. For me, I needed children to do that. I don't think if I never had kids, it would have only been because I belonged to myself prior to having them. Given that I started having kids at 17, I doubt that would have happened for me. And I think, I don't regret my kids, but I do think I had this type of teaching and wisdom early on, I'm more positive I wouldn't have 4 for sure. Nor would I have had them as early as I had them. But I also think that was just my path. So I don't have any regrets about it, because it also, I wouldn't be who I am. I would not have started healing like this if I didn't choose motherhood at my Saturn return. Yeah, I think motherhood initiates you into shadow work. For sure. And now how you navigate that shadow work will also be how you navigate motherhood. Good or bad. If you choose not to do your shadow work and you avoid it, it will show up in your children. Now, I think you're gonna have to do shadow work whether you choose motherhood or not. If you have a womb, period, you're doing shadow work every 28 days when you have your menstrual cycle. So like, those your luteal period, when you're already a little moody, you get your cycle, you're already a little moody. Those emotions are coming up to be processed. Those are emotions that are already within your womb. And if you really start to track your moon cycle, your dreams, what emotions start to come up during your cycle, those will be clues as to what you're processing. Those will be clues as to what karma is also asking to be released through your womb. And I think PCOS, endometriosis are signs that there is some ancestral trauma that is trying to be released and you will not process it. Because if you think about what PCOS and endometriosis is, it is a stagnancy of energy. There is no real flow happening. With PCOS, it's an overgrowth or cyst forming on your ovaries, meaning the eggs aren't fully being able to even travel to be released into your uterus. Endometriosis, y'all know what I meant, is the lining of your uterus that's usually shed during your period, not shedding, instead growing inwardly. And now attaching itself, as in you are holding on to it. You won't release it. So then it's holding on for dear life. It's holding on to your uterus. It's now attaching all throughout your body. And that is where it's a clue. There's something ancestral, there's something karmic happening here that I am either not aware of or I'm aware of and I'm avoiding. And this is the work of women. Like, you can either hate it or love it. But on the other side of that, there also is a lot of magic that also comes with having a womb. There is a lot of ancestral magic and wisdom that we also get to carry and live out. It's not, when I say karma, that we are the karmic transmuters, I'm not just talking about bad karma. I'm also talking about ancestral blessings. I'm also talking about ancestral gifts. When you see a family that everybody could sing, that's their ancestral gift. When you see a family like the Wayans, everybody funny, everybody has charisma, everybody has that je ne sais quoi, that's their family gift. That's their family blessing. And my family, literally everybody, life path is a 6. We all carry the energy of harmony. We all carry the energy of love and service and healing. That's just the family gift. But the more you try to avoid the negative patterns, the more you don't get to really embody the positive ones either. So that's the work. So the next point I was going to make, generational imprints, what we carry. So because women carry the lineage, they carry the legacy, they also carry the nervous system patterns. So we inherit our mother's nervous system, but we're also connected to our mother's nervous system up until the age 7. This is also why motherhood is shadow work, because not only will you be required to regulate your nervous system, you'll also be required to regulate your child up until the age 7. And the goal and the desire should be that once they become 7, I have done the work of regulating to where now they can regulate. And my regressions, most people go back to age 7 or 8. 7 and 8 always comes up because those are the ages where you are starting to regulate for yourself and you don't know how. 7 or 8 is usually confusion, is the main emotion that we are having to process in my sessions. Because at 7 or 8, you're going back to that time period and you're realizing, I don't know what the hell going on. I'm deeply confused. And most people think that it may, like I had a client, she went back to age 8 and she associated it with going back to process her grandfather's death because he was sick. But she realized it wasn't the grief that she was holding on to, it was the confusion. And she was tying them together, that grief and confusion now show up together. So now, really what she was getting a regression for was for her business because she was confused about the next step she was going to make. But it didn't feel like confusion. It felt like grief because at 7, she tied in grief, not the confusion. And so as mothers, this is the shadow work that you're also going to have to teach your child how to regulate. This is why I said the other day, you, as a single mother, you do your child a disservice by trying to overcompensate and try to coddle them into not having to face the fact that they have one parent. As hard as that may be, as heartbreaking as that may be for you, it's also that for them. But a lot of mothers won't be able to teach their child how to regulate and process that grief because they don't know how to process grief either. Because perhaps they never grieved the having one parent, or they never grieved a death. They never grieved, whatever the grief may be, they never learned how to regulate through it. And so how am I going to now help my 3-year-old, my 4-year-old process grief? I'm not. I'm going to avoid. I'm going to try to soothe them by getting them some candy or giving them a gift or doing the things that I feel like this parent would have done. But it doesn't matter how much you do. You could buy them all the game systems, all the shoes, all the nice clothes. You could give them all the love and nurturing. It is not going to rid them of still having the desire for a father. And the more that you try to overcompensate, the more their imagination is going to run free too. Because now they have this empty space that they are trying to make sense of. Back to that confusion. If they are not, they don't know why their other parent is here. So now they have to create scenarios and they have to make up what they think a father would be or should be. Even for myself, my mother was in and out of my life. And now that I am a mother, especially of a girl, I had messaged Carlissa this after the live today when she was talking about her mother being her mentor. Me and my daughter started having difficulty at age 11 because she needed a mother. She didn't need a mentor. And so now that forced me to have to come back into my body. It forced me to start having to mother myself. And not mother her from what I think an 11-year-old needed. Or what I needed at 11. Because she got her mama. She don't need what I needed at 11. I needed to go back to mother my 11-year-old self so that I know how to hear her, how to communicate with an 11-year-old, because my 11-year-old was fragmented. My 11-year-old was disassociated. People used to ask if I missed my dad. I never knew what a dad was. That was what I struggled with. You know, I would ask my son that growing up, but he also had a stepdad. And he would just always, but I would ask him, like, how do he feel about his biological dad not being present? And he would just tell me he don't think about it. And I would think, like, you would have to think about it. But after a while, I thought maybe he just don't think about it because he doesn't feel like he's missing anything. Hey, Madam C. Thank you. Let me see what else y'all talking about in here before I go on. I think I'm caught up. So yeah, we pass on our nervous system. We inherit our mother's nervous system. As mothers, we pass on what we cannot process if we are choosing to not come home to our body, not regulate. And when we think about like nervous system patterns, also think of anxiety, hyper independence, people pleasing. Those are things you are going to learn from your mother. So if any of those things are showing up, go back and look at your mother. We inherit abandonment, betrayal, silence. Abandonment is a big one too, because I personally believe if you experience being a single mother, it's because you already had a abandonment wound, and so you attracted a partner that would also abandon you. And so even for your mom, she was a single parent. She never processed her abandonment wounds. Therefore, attracted a partner that wouldn't stay. The next pattern is inherited survival. So I was saying how your mother manages money, how she manages a household. What are her survival patterns will tell you a lot about yours. And this is where, if you still have your mother in your life and you guys are in communication, it would be good to have these conversations. Because in you being able and now capable of processing your emotions, you will also trigger her to also be able to process them as well. This is why I think when you start healing, that's the saying that once you start healing, all the women around you start to heal. I think genetically, yes, because as we heal, so does our DNA. So whether the women around us, what our family wants to heal or not, they will be triggered to heal. Even if they're not in close proximity, even if you don't have access to them. There are things that I know for sure I am processing and healing that I know my mom and my sisters are going through, even though we're not in communication. I know this just off of when we were in communication, and I'm hiding the things that I'm working on. I'm hiding the things that I'm talking about in therapy, but then I'm also having a conversation with you, and I'm hearing it come up, but I'm also seeing how you deal with it, how you handle it, and that also lets me know, nope, don't want to do that. Like towards the end of me and my mom really being in communication, my mom, she has this thing where she wants us to tell her like if she's making a good decision or not. So like before she makes a decision, she'll call and ask all of us, me and my sisters, like, do you think I should do this? And the last thing I told her was like, you're gonna have to deal with the consequences of that. I can't tell you what to do. But in that conversation, I also had to look at my own life. How am I doing that? If that's a pattern for her, it's also a pattern for me. Let me nip it in the bud before I need a tangible experience that forces me into healing that. My mother don't share and is emotionally unavailable. She's only bothered if we don't talk. I think the emotional unavailable part, sometimes there's nothing you can do about it, but I also think the emotional unavailability means you're going to have to either limit or go no contact. Because their emotional unavailability will also cause you to shut down. And if you are going to be a woman who really steps into the responsibility of being a karmic transmuter for your lineage, your legacy, that can't be held up by one person, even if it's your mom. And I think the idea of going no contact feels so heartbreaking because our biology wants us to be in a family unit. We are literally having to go against the grain in order to go no contact with a mother or a sibling. It doesn't make sense to our body. But this is also why you would need to reconnect to your body and to your womb. That way you can also reconnect to your maternal line because it feels less like betrayal. I'm not in contact with my mom and my sisters, yet I still feel connected to my maternal line because a lot of the insight and how to navigate this space also comes from that. When I talk about ancestral healing or even honoring my ancestors, when I seek wise counsel from my ancestors, I'm asking, how can I handle this? And because I've done that, I also feel in full confidence this is the right decision. And so that also helps me with that grief, that I feel like this is the best thing I could do for not just me, but also for them. But that goes back to like the responsibility. If you are going to take on the ownership and the responsibility of being a matriarch is not just the mother. The matriarch isn't just having children. The matriarch isn't just being loving and nurturing. The matriarch is also having to hold the responsibility of a community, of a family. So it goes beyond just mother-daughter, which will go back to like legacy. Legacy is not passed down through men. Legacy is passed down through the women. And if you want to know the state of your lineage, you want to know the state of your legacy as a family, look at all the women in your family. And that'll give you a real clear picture of the state of your lineage. It'll also give you a good idea of the state of your body. So when you are doing the work of coming home to yourself, you're doing the work of regulating your nervous system, that also lets you know, be patient with yourself. Regulating your nervous system is not something you could do in 30 days. Regulating your nervous system is not something that is quick and easy. It will take time. And so a lot of people, especially now, heal your nervous system, regulate your nervous system. It has to be, yeah, it has to be a practice. It has to be devotional. Because you got to think about how many women have not been home in their bodies. How many women in your family have inherited distrust within their body. That safety has not existed probably for many, many generations, especially for Black people, especially for our ancestors who have experienced slavery. Safety has not existed for real. This is why I say if you go and honor and show reverence and venerate your ancestors, go back far. Call on the ancestors that existed before the pain, before the distrust, before the lack of safety existed. Those are the ancestors you need to be connecting with. Those are the ancestors that should be on your altar. And in my experience, those ancestors are not asking for the type of offerings. They're not asking for a plate. They're not asking for cigarettes. They're not asking for those type of things. They're asking for you to live a beautiful life, because that's going to heal your nervous system. That's going to restore the bloodline. That's going to restore the legacy. And most times they don't even come through as a spirit, as in like how you thought of your grandma or how you thought of your aunt. They're not coming through like that. A lot of times they come through as elements. Deities even. But in terms of restoring the bloodline, coming home to your body, healing your nervous system, is generational wealth. Whether you have kids or not. Because like I said, if you never choose motherhood, you are still having to do the work of healing the lineage. Because you have a womb. Because you have eggs. Because of your DNA. As you heal, it also changes your cellular DNA, which also causes the people around you, your family, to also have changes. And so the work isn't motherhood how we think of it. The work is being a mother, but we are, as women, a mother of many, many different things. If you are choosing not to give birth to kids, you still should be choosing to give birth to something. Whether it is giving birth to, like I said, a beautiful life, beautiful friendships, beautiful relationships, restoring the connection to women in friendship, restoring the love that couldn't have existed during slavery, that couldn't have existed during Jim Crow, that a love that could not have survived until now. That's really the gift of being able to take back responsibility, is that you can. That's why I say, like, those who are considered cycle breakers, it's not because God chose you. It's because you're capable. That because of the sacrifices that they have made, that now that a life of ease is even possible. And I think as Black women, and men too, as Black people, that's our plight. That our fight isn't with racism, for real. Our fight should be about restoring love. Love with our body, love within our families, love within our minds. love within our relationships, and reframing what love means and looks like. Because love is not always family. Your life should feel like love. Your home should feel like love. Work even should feel like love. And as women, we're capable of creating it because we have a womb. Because every 28 days we get a energetic deposit. So like, yeah, we shed through our menstrual cycle. We also gain and generate a whole new bank account every month. And that's what makes women so magical, is that we inherit our wealth. While men actually men generate their energy and their chi every 24 hours. So they get restored every 24 hours, but they also have to work for that chi and that energy that they're getting. Women, on the other hand, like I said, we are born with all the eggs that we are ever going to carry. Our eggs is what carries our chi. We convert the energy that is within an egg. If we do not have children, we have the ability to generate that into chi. Chi is vitality. So as a woman, if you can create a life, a whole human being, you can create a lot of things. So if you choose not to give birth to a child, you should still be birthing something that can contribute to the legacy of your lineage, and that will restore harmony. And I think this is why women who have girls and give birth to another extender of the lineage, it's important to show them what it means to be in that responsibility. Good night, Madam C. Because the responsibility is not all love and light. It also requires you to be cutthroat. It also requires you to be dark in some instances. It also requires you to be no nonsense in a way. But I also think that's why so many women struggle with taking the responsibility of their womb, of their own energy, their own love, because you also have to hold the responsibility of holding the duality of you. And because we want to be accepted, we want love and all the things, we tend to lean towards the thing that we think is more acceptable. Let's see what else. So that brings me to the responsibility of a woman who is coming back into her power, who is choosing to be the matriarch of her lineage, and to heal the karma, good or bad, in their womb. The responsibility is first to remember. And to remember means to reclaim, to go back to all the different versions of you that had to disassociate, who couldn't process and feel. Because those are going to be the versions of you that you have to remember. Remember is bringing your cells back. When you talk about embodiment and wholeness, it's about all the versions of you being able to exist. So for me, all 38 versions of me. I've been alive for 38 years. I need every single one. to be present. And I can't afford to forget. I can't afford to disassociate. I can't afford to leave 7, 8, 9-year-old Valerie behind. Because I'm also responsible for her too. So the responsibility is to remember and then to regulate. So go back and gather all your versions, all the pieces and fragments that have been disassociated and forgotten about, and being able to sit with what comes up. Because you only disassociate, you only dismember because you can't process an emotion. So if grief was too much for me, I'm going to disassociate until I can process that grief. So to remember is also to say, I'm ready to process that now. I'm capable of processing that now. So to remember, to regulate, and lastly is to rewrite. To rewrite means I am choosing to move differently. So if all the women in my family couldn't process grief, if all the women in my family couldn't be safe within their body, okay, now I've remembered this piece of me. I've called back all the different versions of me. I can now sit with the emotion. I can regulate through difficult emotions. And so now I can choose differently. I no longer have to repeat the same cycles. That's how you shift the energy of the lineage. You have to do all three. None of them can be skipped. So it's remembering, it's regulating, it's rewriting. And that is what I will be teaching and guiding you through in the workshop that is to come on April 6th. So it is the ethereal, since y'all keep calling me ethereal Valerie, ethereal womb wisdom workshop. I'll be guiding you guys through a hypnosis / meditation. Hypnosis is only meditation. To connect back to your body, to your womb, therefore your maternal line, which is also just the collective womb of the Akasha. At the beginning of the live, I talked about the difference between the Akasha and the Akashic records. So I will post this on YouTube if you missed it, because I don't want to say it again. I'll do more lives up until the 6th to talk more about it. But you can sign up on my website. The link is in my description box. It's going to be April 6th from 7 to 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. So it'll be 2 hours. The first hour will be more so like breath work and teaching. And then the second hour will be more of the meditation and guiding. And then I'll probably leave, some time afterwards to talk about, whatever came up for people and the things. Whenever I do a workshop, I typically have to do it with myself first. And I did it. I usually do my regressions or do deep meditations when I'm in the bathtub. And so I did it last Friday. And it was really interesting. Whenever I do my own regressions, I'm always really fascinated. So I'm excited for you guys to also experience it. One of the first regressions I had in regards to what I'm talking about, I'll share, was back in 2022. And this was before I even really started doing Akashic. I think I was doing Akashic record readings, but I hadn't started doing regressions yet. But I was just meditating and did my own regression. And I went back to when I was in my mother's womb. And in the regressions, it's hard to explain because you may not visually see it. It's just kind of because you're in this hypnotic space. And so you basically have to trust what comes up. Hey Monet, Eloise. And so I regressed back to when I was in my mother's womb. And I just felt like this intense amount of fear. And at the time, I was also having to process a lot of fear. I was separating from my partner. It was just a lot going on. So it was a lot of uncertainty. And I had that regression. And so when I moved here, because my mom also lives in Texas, we had a conversation. I asked her, like, when you were pregnant with me, were you experienced like a lot of fear? And just because I wanted to know like why that came up. And she was like, yeah, why you asked that? And I had told her, and she was like, that's really like crazy. Because like she was saying basically when she was pregnant with all of us, pretty much, she would be like terrified because at the time she had epilepsy really bad, and she would always be afraid while she was pregnant that she would have a seizure. And it was just really wild that is also what came up in the regression. And that kind of is what led me to start connecting the dots of like, oh, we still hold the energetic memory of when we are in the womb. And so it has been transformative for my own healing to do regressions and to heal from the subconscious instead of like literally physically, because physically it's harder to jump into that fear physically, because of when you do hypnosis or guided meditation, it allows you to process it from almost a place of detachment, and not from a place of disassociation, but from a place of detachment. Because in my own personal life, the fear was too consuming, but for me to see it as a fear that is not necessarily in my day-to-day life, but me looking at it from a past version of myself was easier some way, because it's kind of like EMDR therapy, where you are able to kind of get a zoomed out picture of it and you're able to process it from there, because really that is the root. So like the fear that I was having in my current day wasn't really what was hard to process. It was the fear from me being in utero. And so if I can process that, I can also process what's going on here, because the fear that I was feeling was not as significant as the root. So you heal the root, what's happening in your everyday real life also feels easier because it's not as heavy. It's not as deeply rooted. And so you're able to heal from it. I think your recovery is a lot quicker, if that makes sense. So I just wanted to share my own experience with that. If you guys have any questions before I hop off, I will take them now. Did anything that came up or that I was talking about resonate with y'all? Or make you look at things any differently in terms of matriarchy? Do you have to be good at meditation for the workshop? No. Most people who feel like they have a hard time meditating, it's because you feel like you shouldn't be thinking, or like your mind is elsewhere, which having a guided meditation helps. But I will also give tools prior to, and we'll also be doing breath work. So a part of being able to guide people into hypnosis is also being able to guide them into their theta state. So your theta state you're in all the time, which is part of why people feel a way about hypnosis, of thinking like you're not going to be aware. Your theta state is like the state you get into right before bed, or like when you're daydreaming. So like you're still aware, but you are not as hyper vigilant or like active. And so we'll do different breathing techniques as well as eye movement. So like when you see like when people talk about hypnosis and they're waving the clock back and forth, that is true, that doing that helps because it allows you to access the right and left hemispheres of your brain. And when you do that, you're able to process any like emotion that is prohibiting you from relaxing. So typically in meditation, you're not able to really relax because maybe you're anxious, or maybe you're thinking about what you got to do tomorrow, or your mind is just wandering, but it's usually tied to an emotion too that you're just not processing. And to processing emotion, it really only takes 30 seconds. And so I will be teaching you guys different breathing techniques, but I'll also be guiding and walking you through it. And it'll be more of a like visualization meditation too. And that typically helps. A lot of people like in my workshops usually say, once I guide them into their own, meditation, they will usually like start not probably like they don't even really hear me. Like they're now visualizing and they're getting their things on their own, that it's not so much of me. It's just I'm guiding you to the place, if that makes sense. Now, in my like one-on-one regressions, I'm talking to you personally the whole time. So it's kind of hard to like lose my voice in that. But in a group setting, in the workshop, because everybody will be having their own experience too, that once I guide you there, you should be good. So no, you don't have to be good at meditating. If you feel like you have a hard time meditating now, why? Is it because you're thinking about other things? Hey, Dev Simone. I'm definitely ready for this. It's kind of the end of it, but I'm going to post the replay on YouTube. Actually, when you fall asleep during meditation, that's actually kind of good. So like before bed, I like to, I guess, kind of do like a meditation or like breath work before I go to bed. And it's a good way to manifest stuff, or even like use your dream state to heal, is by thinking about it right before you go to bed. So like if you fall asleep, it just means you are like fully in meditation. But whatever you were probably thinking about, or if you were doing like a guided meditation and you ended up falling asleep, I still look at it as it worked. You just may not remember it. I've never had anybody fall asleep in a regression though. But like when I do like walk myself into meditation before I go to sleep,